The hallway went silent, in the way that only happens when something impossible has just occurred. Dr. Renata Osei stood in the doorway of room 14, her hand still raised mid-knock, her body refusing the instruction to move. Beside her, the hospital administrator, a man named Gerald Pratt, who had managed crises for 22 years and prided himself on never showing surprise, had gone the color of old wax. Two attending physicians stood frozen near the nurse's station, their clipboards hanging at their sides like forgotten things. The fluorescent light above them flickered once, twice, then held. At the center of it all stood Elias Drummond, a 41-year-old janitor in a gray uniform with his name stitched above the breast pocket in blue thread. He held a mop handle with both hands. A 6-year-old boy stood beside him, fingers wrapped around the same handle, and his face was turned up toward Elias with an expression that was ancient and certain and entirely out of place on a child that small. The boy had just whispered something into Elias's ear. 4 words, maybe 5. Elias's face had changed the way a face changes when the ground shifts, not dramatically, not all at once, but in the small, careful way of a man who has learned that falling apart is a luxury he cannot afford. His jaw tightened. His eyes moved to the wall, then to the floor, then to nothing. Quote underscore 0. Underscore. Dr. Osei's voice came out lower than she intended. Elias did not answer right away. He looked down at the boy. The boy looked back up at him. He said a name, Elias said finally. His voice was steady. His hands were not. And a room number, and something else. What else? Gerald Pratt asked. He had found his voice, but it had lost its usual authority. Elias looked at him for a long moment. The kind of look that measures a person and arrives at a number. He said, "They told her it was her heart." Nobody moved. The elevator at the end of the hall dinged softly. Nobody turned to look. There are moments that split a life cleanly in two, a before and an after, with no passage between them, just a single sentence standing at the border. This was one of those moments. And the man standing at the center of it had spent 11 years being invisible in this building, mopping these floors, eating the same turkey sandwich from the same vending machine at 2 in the morning, calling his daughter on a prepaid plan that gave him exactly 12 minutes a week. He had not come to this hospital tonight to change anything. He had come to clean the floors, but to understand how a janitor and a 6-year-old boy brought a decade of silence to its knees, we have to go back to the beginning. Back to a Tuesday. Back to a man who had made peace with being unremarkable, and a child who had been waiting 6 years to find someone who would listen. Before we get there, drop a comment and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you're new here, subscribe. The fun is just beginning. Tell us what city you're from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching from where? Like and subscribe to the channel. More to come. Tell us in the comments who's from which country, and give us a like and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Tell us where you are now, give the video a thumbs up, and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us where you're watching from. Give the video a like and hit the subscribe button. The climax is near. Share where you're from, like, and be sure to subscribe. Events are unfolding rapidly. Write your city in the chat, give it a like, and subscribe so you don't get lost. The juiciest part is yet to come. Let's get started. Get to know each other. Where are you from? Like and subscribe right now. The suspense is building. Tell us where you're watching this episode from, and reward us with a like and a subscribe. The excitement is running high. Tell us what city you're from now. Give us a big like and subscribe to the channel. We tell stories about ordinary people who do extraordinary things. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Elias Drummond woke every Tuesday at 5:40 in the afternoon, not 5:30, not 6. 5:40, because that gave him exactly enough time to heat water on the single burner, drink his instant coffee standing at the window, and watch the laundromat customers below load their machines before the day's shift ended and the street changed its character. The room above the laundromat on Beatty's Ford Road cost him $620 a month, which he considered a reasonable arrangement. The ceiling sloped on the left side. The radiator knocked 3 times every hour, like someone politely requesting entry. He had stopped noticing both. His uniform hung on the back of the door, gray, pressed, the name Elias stitched in blue thread above the breast pocket. He dressed carefully. He always dressed carefully. It was the one thing he controlled completely. The hospital was 40 minutes by bus. He rode the number 9, always sat in the same seat, third from the back on the right, and looked out the window at Charlotte moving through its evening. Restaurants filling up, office buildings emptying, a world operating on a schedule that had nothing to do with his. He had worked the night shift at Caldwell Presbyterian for 11 years. He knew the East Wing elevator ran half a second slower than the West. He knew the supply closet on the 3rd floor smelled like old paint no matter how many times they restocked it. He knew which nurses would nod at him and which ones would look through him as though the mop were pushing itself. Quote 5. That was Sandra, charge nurse on the 2nd floor, who had learned his name in year 2 and used it every single shift since. Quote 6. That was the full extent of most of his conversations before midnight. At 2 in the morning, he bought a turkey sandwich from the vending machine on the 4th floor. $3.75. He had done the math once on a slow night, written it on the back of a receipt, $97.50 a month. He kept buying it anyway. Routine was its own kind of comfort. His work badge had a crack across the laminate, a diagonal line running from the corner of his photo to the edge of the clip. He had dropped it in the parking lot 2 winters ago on a night so cold the asphalt had felt like iron. Replacing it cost $14. He had never replaced it. Every Sunday at 9 in the evening, he called Cora. His daughter was 17, living with her grandmother in Valdosta, Georgia, in a house that smelled like cedar and fried cornbread. The prepaid plan gave him 12 minutes. He never went over. He saved the last minute to just listen to her breathe, the way he used to when she was small, and he would stand in her doorway at night, making sure she was still there. Quote 7. Quote 8. Quote 9. But she said it warm. She always said it warm. He would hang up and sit on the edge of his bed and look at the photograph on the nightstand. Cora, at 14, squinting into the sun, laughing at something outside the frame. He did not know that the following Tuesday would be different from any other. The boy arrived on a Tuesday, which meant Elias was there. The paramedics brought him in at 11:40 at night, no name given, no guardian present, found sitting alone on the grass median of Interstate 85 by a truck driver who almost didn't see him in the dark. The intake report said approximately 6 years old, no visible injuries, non-communicative. They put him in observation room 4 on the 2nd floor. The room smelled like antiseptic and the faint ghost of someone else's flowers. Elias was mopping the hallway outside when the gurney rolled past. He stepped back against the wall to give it room. The boy was sitting upright on the mattress, not lying down the way frightened children usually do. Just sitting, knees together, hands in his lap, watching the ceiling tiles pass overhead with an expression that was not fear exactly. It was older than fear. Sandra came out of the room 2 minutes later and nearly walked into Elias's mop bucket. Sorry. She pressed her hand to her chest. Lord, I didn't see you. Is he all right? Physically, yes. She glanced back through the small window in the door. Won't talk, won't look at anyone. Dr. Hess tried for 20 minutes. Elias looked at the door. Then he went back to mopping. By midnight, 3 different staff members had attempted to reach the boy. A pediatric nurse named Darnell who had a gift with children. A volunteer chaplain who spoke softly and smelled like peppermint. The on-call social worker, a woman in a beige cardigan who introduced herself twice and received nothing in return. Each time, the boy turned his face toward the wall. Each time, the room went back to silence. Elias had finished the hallway. He refilled his bucket at the utility sink, the water running hot and smelling of industrial lemon cleaner, and started on the far end of the corridor. He was not thinking about the boy. He was thinking about whether the number 9 bus ran late on Tuesdays, and whether he had enough on his card for the vending machine. He pushed open the door to observation room 4 because it was on his list. The boy turned. Not toward the door. Toward Elias specifically. His eyes moved past the doorframe and found the man behind the mop handle and stayed there. Elias nodded once, the way he nodded at Sandra. Professional, neutral. He started on the far corner of the room, keeping his movements slow and even, the mop head whispering against the linoleum in long, steady arcs. The boy watched him the entire time. Elias worked his way toward the center of the room. The bucket wheel squeaked. It always squeaked, that particular high-pitched complaint he had reported 3 times to maintenance and which had never been fixed. He reached the area near the bed. The boy slid off the mattress. Both feet hit the floor without a sound. He walked to Elias and put both hands around the mop handle, just below Elias's grip. Elias went still. The boy did not look up. He just held on, like he had been waiting a long time to hold on to something that wasn't moving away. Elias let him. Sandra had been standing in the hallway for a full minute before Elias noticed her. She was watching through the small window in the door, the boy still holding the mop handle, Elias still letting him. And her expression was the kind that people try to keep off their faces in professional settings and rarely succeed. She pressed her lips together when Elias looked up. She nodded once, slowly, and walked away without saying anything. Elias found crackers in his jacket pocket, the small orange kind from the vending machine, peanut butter between them, that he sometimes bought when the turkey sandwich felt like too much effort. He set them on the edge of the bed without making a production of it. The boy looked at them. Then he picked them up and ate them one at a time, carefully, like each one required a decision. "What's your name?" Elias asked. The boy chewed. He didn't answer. Elias went back to the mop. Nothing, but the boy's shoulders dropped a 1/4 inch, barely visible. Elias noticed. The social worker returned at midnight. Her name was Patricia, and she carried a canvas tote bag printed with sunflowers that seemed aggressively cheerful against the pale walls. She smelled like hand lotion and stale coffee. "Hi there," she said to the boy, her voice climbing into the register people use with small animals. "Remember me? I'm Patricia." The boy turned his face toward the wall. Patricia looked at Elias with an expression that asked a question she didn't know how to phrase. Quote 20. Elias said quietly, Quote 21. She lingered another moment, wrote something on her clipboard, and left. The moment the door closed, the boy turned back around. It was somewhere around 1 in the morning when Elias first noticed the other things. He had moved into the hallway to wring out his mop, and he saw the access terminal at the nurse's station, the one used to pull patient files, showing an active session. The screen faced away from him, but the timestamp in the corner was visible from where he stood. 11:04 p.m., 3 hours ago. The night shift hadn't started until 11:30. He thought about it for a moment. Then he thought about something else. 20 minutes later, Gerald Pratt appeared on the second floor. Elias knew Pratt the way all night shift workers know administrators, by reputation and by the particular quality of his footsteps, which were deliberate and unhurried in the way of a man who has decided in advance that every room he enters is already his. Pratt wore a charcoal suit at 1 in the morning. He smelled of cedar and something sharper underneath. Quote, 22 Pratt said to the charge nurse, not to anyone in particular, to the air. Quote, 23. Pratt glanced at the door. Then his eyes moved to Elias. He did not acknowledge Elias. He looked at him the way people look at furniture, registering presence, assigning no significance. Then he looked back at the nurse. Quote, 24. The nurse opened her mouth. Quote, 25. Pratt said, before she could answer. Quote, 26. Elias went back into the room after Pratt left. He didn't make a decision about it exactly. His feet just carried him there, the mop bucket squeaking its familiar complaint down the hallway, and he pushed open the door and the boy looked up, and that was that. Whatever Pratt wanted, documented, could be documented. Elias had 11 years of clean incident reports. He would have 12. The boy had moved back to the bed. He sat the same way as before, knees together, hands in his lap. But something in his posture had shifted. He was watching the door now instead of the window. He's gone, Elias said. The boy looked at him. The man in the suit. He left. The boy's grip on his own knees loosened slightly. Elias pulled the single chair from the corner, the one bolted to the floor, which made a grinding sound when he dragged it anyway, and sat down a few feet from the bed. Not close, just present. The fluorescent light above them hummed at a frequency that Elias had long since stopped hearing consciously, but which the boy seemed to feel, because he kept glancing up at it. They sat like that for a while, 20 minutes, maybe more. At 3:47 in the morning, the boy leaned forward. He leaned forward and he spoke. Barely above a breath, the words shaped more than voiced, and Elias had to stay completely still to catch them. 4 words, then a room number, then a last name. Elias's chest went tight. He sat with it for a moment. The hum of the light, the distant sound of the East Wing elevator, the boy watching him with those careful, ancient eyes. Say that again, Elias said. His voice came out even. He was proud of that. Slowly. The boy said it again. The same words, in the same order. They told her it was her heart. Elias stood up. He stood up and he walked to the window, the one that looked out onto the air conditioning unit, silver and indifferent in the dark. And he put one hand flat against the glass and looked at nothing. Sylvia. He hadn't said her name out loud in 2 years. He had gotten good at keeping it somewhere interior, somewhere managed, the way you learn to carry a weight by distributing it evenly so no single part of you breaks. Quote 32, he asked. He was still facing the window. Quote 33, the boy said. Quote 34. Elias turned around slowly. The boy was looking at his hands now. Small hands, the knuckles slightly ashy, the nails bitten down to nothing. Elias said. The boy looked up. Quote 38. The air in the room changed. Elias crossed back to the chair and sat down. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and looked at this child. Really looked. And something in his face rearranged itself into a shape it had never quite held before. Quote 39, he asked. The boy told him. Elias walked to the nurse's station with his mop handle still in his hand. He set it against the wall carefully, the way a person sets something down when they need their hands free to think. Sandra was at the desk, charting. She looked up at his face and put her pen down. I need to speak with someone, he said. Someone with authority, not Pratt. Sandra studied him for a moment. 11 years of nodding at each other across hallways, and she had never heard him ask for anything. How serious? I don't know yet. He paused. Serious enough. She picked up the phone. Dr. Renata Osei was not supposed to be on the second floor that night. She was visiting a patient on the fourth, a former colleague recovering from a procedure, and had stopped to use the East Wing stairwell, which brought her past the second-floor landing at precisely the wrong moment, or perhaps the right one. She was 51 years old, wore her hair natural and close-cropped, and carried herself with the particular stillness of someone who had learned to think faster than she moved. She had spent 12 years as a federal prosecutor before leaving law for medicine, a decision that confused everyone who knew her and which she had never fully explained. She still carried a case she couldn't close. She had carried it for 10 years, the way some people carry an old injury, not always painful, but always present. Sandra brought her to the hallway outside room 4. Elias was waiting, Dr. Osei said. Her voice was measured. Precise, Elias said. Dr. Osei went very still, not the stillness of confusion, the stillness of recognition. She asked. Elias kept his eyes on her face, watching. Quote, 51. Elias stopped. He pressed his lips together once, then continued. Quote, 52. The hallway was quiet. Somewhere down the corridor, a monitor beeped its steady rhythm. Dr. Osei said slowly. She turned away from him. She put one hand on the wall and looked at the floor for 3 seconds. Then she turned back. Quote 56, she said. Quote 57. She paused. Quote 58. Elias felt the floor shift slightly beneath him, the way it had in room 4 when the boy spoke. Quote 59, he said. Dr. Osei looked at him. Really looked. The way she had looked at evidence for 12 years, searching for the thing that was true beneath the thing that was stated. Quote 60, she asked quietly. Elias glanced toward the closed door of room 4. Quote 61. They went back into the room together. Dr. Osei stood near the door. Elias sat in the bolted chair. The boy, Marcus, he had told Elias his name was Marcus, was lying on his side on the bed now, knees pulled up, eyes open, watching them both with the careful attention of a child who has learned that adults leaving a room is not the same as adults being gone. Quote 62, Elias said. Quote 63. Marcus looked at her. He did not look away, which Dr. Osei noted. Quote 64, she asked. Quote 65. Quote 66, Marcus said. Quote 67. Quote 68. He thought about it. Quote 69. Elias went very still. Dr. Osei kept her voice even. Quote 70. The boy's jaw tightened. He pulled his knees closer. She said they didn't listen to her, he said. She said she told them something was wrong, and they wrote it down, but nobody did anything. He paused. She said the paper she signed wasn't what they told her it was. The room was completely quiet. Dr. Osei looked at Elias. Elias looked at the floor. She made me memorize things, Marcus continued, his voice dropping to the register children use when they are reciting, when the words belong to someone else. The room number, the last name, the thing they said about her heart. She said if anything happened, I should find someone who listens and say those things out loud. He looked at Elias. You listened. Elias pressed the back of his hand against his mouth for a moment. Yeah, he said. I did. Dr. Osei stepped into the hallway. Elias followed, pulling the door almost closed behind him. The complaint she filed, Elias said, low. What was it about? She alleged that a procedure had been performed without her full understanding of what she was consenting to, that when she raised concerns afterward, she was told her symptoms were unrelated, that the documentation in her file did not match what she had been told verbally. Doctor. Osei's voice was clinical, careful, the way a person speaks when they have rehearsed something so many times it has worn smooth. Quote, 82. Quote, 83. Quote, 84. She looked at the door. Quote, 85. Her voice did not waver. Quote, 86. Down the hall, a door opened. Gerald Pratt stepped out, phone to his ear, and his eyes found them immediately. Two people standing too close together, speaking too quietly, outside a room he had already decided was a problem. He ended his call. He started walking toward them. Pratt did not raise his voice. That was the thing about him. He never raised his voice. Quote, 87. He stopped 6 feet away, hands clasped in front of him, his charcoal suit immaculate at 4 in the morning in a way that felt deliberate. Quote, 88. Quote, 89, Elias said. Quote, 90. Pratt smiled. It did not reach his eyes. He paused on the word protected the way people pause on words they have chosen very carefully. Dr. Osei stepped forward. Quote, 93. Pratt looked at her. Something moved behind his eyes, and then was gone. Quote, 94. Quote, 95, she said pleasantly. Quote, 96. Pratt held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he nodded once and walked away, his footsteps unhurried and even on the linoleum, fading toward the elevator. The HR meeting lasted 11 minutes. A woman named Carla, who smelled of hand sanitizer and kept her eyes on her laptop screen, slid a single-page document across the table toward Elias. She did not hand it to him. She slid it, the way you slide something you want someone to take without examining too closely. Quote, 97, she said. Quote, 98. Elias picked it up. He read the first paragraph, then the second. Quote, 99, quote, 100. Carla smiled. Quote, 101. He folded it in half and put it in his breast pocket. He could feel it there when he stood, a thin rectangle of pressure against his chest. As he walked to his locker, put on his one good jacket, the charcoal wool one he kept for meetings with people who needed to see that he owned something decent, and went outside. The parking lot at 5 in the morning smelled like cold asphalt and exhaust from the loading dock. A black sedan sat in the physician's reserved section, engine off, no one visible inside. It had been there 3 nights running. Elias had noticed. He noticed things. It was what 11 years of invisibility taught you. How to watch without being seen watching. He stood at the edge of the lot and did not move for 4 minutes. Then he took out his phone, the prepaid one with the cracked screen, the one he used only for the 12-minute Sunday calls, and he dialed Cora. It was not Sunday. It was not 9 in the evening. It was 5:03 in the morning, and he had never called outside their scheduled window, not once in 3 years. She answered on the first ring. Daddy? Her voice was thick with sleep but sharpened fast. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, he said. I just needed to hear your voice. A pause. Daddy, what happened? Cora had listened without interrupting, which was not like her. When Elias finished, the boy, the name, Sylvia, the document folded in his breast pocket, the line was quiet for a long moment. The cold parking lot, the distant hum of the loading dock, his own breath visible in the early morning air. Daddy, she said finally, don't sign it. I know. And don't leave that boy alone in there. He looked back at the hospital entrance, the glass doors, the fluorescent lobby light spilling out onto the wet asphalt. I know that too, he said. He went back inside. Dr. Osei was waiting near the elevator with her coat on and a business card already in her hand. She pressed it into his palm without ceremony. James Whitfield, she said. Legal aid. He has been building a case against this facility for 3 years. He needs what you witnessed tonight. He needs Marcus." She paused. "He needs you to not have signed that document." Elias held up the folded paper from his breast pocket. "Still unsigned," he said. Something in her face relaxed for the first time all night. What happened next moved quickly, the way things move when they have been held back for a very long time. Dr. Osei sent an email to James Whitfield at 6:12 in the morning. He read it twice, then called his investigator, Sandra, and a night nurse named Paulette, women who had nodded at Elias across hallways for 11 years and learned his last name for the first time that night. Each wrote out a statement by hand at the nurse's station, the scratch of their pens loud in the early quiet. The State Health Board received a formal filing before 7 a.m. The hearing came 6 weeks later. The courthouse hallway smelled like old carpet and radiator heat. Elias sat on a wooden bench with Marcus beside him, the boy's small hand inside his larger one, both of them watching people move past in suits and lanyards, and the particular purposeful stride of people who know where they are going. "Are you scared?" Marcus asked. "A little," Elias said. "Are you?" Marcus considered this seriously. "She said the truth is heavy, but you don't have to carry it alone." Elias looked at him. "Your mama said that?" "She said it a lot." Elias nodded slowly. He thought about Sylvia at 22, laughing in their grandmother's kitchen in Georgia, flour on her hands, telling him he worried too much. He thought about 9 years of not knowing, 9 years of a story with the wrong ending. _122_. He said. When Elias's name was called, he stood. He straightened his jacket, the charcoal wool one, the one for important meetings, and he walked through the tall wooden doors into a room where his sister's name had never once been spoken aloud in any official capacity. He sat down. He stated his name for the record. He placed the unsigned HR document on the table in front of him. Then he said, quote, 1, 2, 3. The room was very quiet. Marcus, in the hallway, waited. 6 months later, the room above the laundromat was empty. Gerald Pratt resigned the week after the state investigation was announced. 3 physicians were placed under formal review. James Whitfield's case, 3 years in the building, finally had the witness accounts it needed, and the families who had never gotten answers began, slowly, to get them. Sylvia Drummond's name appeared in an official document for the first time, not as a closed case, as a person. Elias was reinstated with back pay and a formal written apology on hospital letterhead, which he folded and put in his one good jacket pocket and never took out again. Sandra called him the morning it came through. Quote, 124, she asked. Quote, 125, he said. Quote, 126. He found Marcus a home through his church, a woman named Aretha, who had been approved as a foster parent for 4 years and never matched, who had a spare room with yellow curtains and a yard with a fig tree, and who cried when Elias called her, not from sadness, but from the particular relief of waiting finally becoming a rival. Marcus went to her on a Thursday. He carried everything he owned in a backpack with a broken zipper that Elias had fixed with a safety pin the night before. Quote 127. Marcus asked, standing at Doretha's front door. Every week, Elias said. Promise? I don't make promises I can't keep. He crouched down to eye level. So yes, I promise. Elias had begun the legal process to become Marcus's guardian. It moved the way these things move, slowly, with paperwork that arrived in envelopes that felt heavier than their contents warranted. But it moved. Cora came to visit in October, the first time in 3 years. She stepped off the bus taller than Elias expected, her grandmother's coat on her shoulders, her mother's eyes in her face. She looked around the new apartment, not the room above the laundromat, A real apartment, 2 bedrooms, a window that faced east. And she nodded slowly. Quote 132, she said. Quote 133. They ate at a diner 3 blocks away, a place that smelled like real butter and coffee that hadn't been sitting since morning. Elias ordered eggs. Cora ordered everything. Halfway through the meal, he told her about Sylvia. Not all of it. Enough. Cora set her fork down. She never told me I was named after her. She didn't know how to explain it yet, Elias said. She was going to. Cora was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad I know now. On a Sunday afternoon in November, Elias and Marcus sat on the stoop of the new apartment and watched the street move through its evening. A woman walked a dog. 2 kids chased each other around a parked car. The sky went orange, then purple, then the deep blue that comes just before dark. Can we get a plant? Marcus asked. For the window. Elias looked at him. This child who had carried his mother's words across 6 years of silence and found the one man in a building full of people who would actually stop and listen. Quote, 140, Elias said. Quote, 141. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Elias's place? Next time, we bring you another